We've done a video on the history of every Dorito, but those were just in the US. Today, we're going international, baby. We're talking canned bacon chips in Japan, giant triangle chips that come with a yogurt dip packet from Turkey, blue Jurassic World steak ones in Canada, and more flavors that sound straight out of a fever dream. I'm going to do my best to gather ones that are only sold in these countries, not stuff that is available in both. And definitely not just American flavors that have made their way out there, because that, well, would be a little redundant. Also, shout out to this comment for giving me the inspiration for this video. So, with all that being said, go grab your favorite bag of Doritos, crack open a Mountain Dew, and sit back as we look back on some wild international Dorito flavors. Starting with Australia and New Zealand. First, we got Doritos Burn, which looked exactly like regular nacho cheese Doritos in terms of color and texture. When you eat one, however, you'd get hit with a fairly mild mix of spices, but then a hot aftertaste snuck up on you, especially in the back of the throat. The bag said double the dare, and even suggested dipping the Doritos in hot salsa. Moving on, we got the dark southern fried chicken Doritos. These had a yellow color with a slight hint of orange and a lot of seasoning on the surfaces. It tasted very strongly of chicken, though not necessarily the fried kind. The bag said, "The fun starts when the lights go out," and intense flavor inspired by your favorite late night snacks. But I mean, most people would say it kind of just tastes like chicken seasonings with a meaty aftertaste. And finally, Italiano tomato and cheese was a newer addition to the Australian line. It had a cheesy tomato aroma and actually tasted pretty good, most people said. While some do describe the tomato flavor as super vague, the mix with that and the classic Dorito cheese was apparently a hit. Now, let's head over to Brazil, who decided to mess with the iconic shape of a Dorito. Starting with original dipas, which are noticeably narrower than regular Doritos, with the pointy end rounded off and the opposite edge gently curved. They tasted like basic corn and salt, with no obvious seasoning, which made sense since they were clearly made for dipping. However, the bag did show the original shape of Doritos on it, which is just kind of funny to me. The other Brazil exclusive is queijo, which literally just means cheese in Portuguese, and tasted like nacho cheesier Doritos, and smelled like them too, people said. Now, let's move up to our northern brothers, because Canada has had some wild Doritos flavors. Starting with Spice 2.0, which had a purplish red flavor powder covering large areas of the otherwise orangish chips. It looked jarring at first. The spice was light on the first bite, but it kicked in during the aftertaste with a nice tasty heat. Most people who tried it were pretty iffy about it. Extreme Kick and Chili were chips that were quite a bit bigger than regular Doritos with rounded corners. It had a chili-like taste, obviously, but wasn't actually that extreme or hot, which makes sense for Canada, I guess. I'm just playing. They were also noted as having a strong taco seasoning scent. And finally, we have Blue Grilled Steak Doritos, which was a Jurassic World crossover flavor. The chips were light blue with a smattering of orange seasoning bits. New York Knicks, anyone? Okay, no, maybe that was too soon. They had a light crunch and tasty flavor that didn't really scream steak, but had some of the spices you'd expect, though a bit sweeter. They were a cool gimmick, but people weren't really digging them more than once. Now, let's head to Israel, which is another country that has some weird shaped Doritos. First off, we got barbecue rotini style chips that were, well, shaped like short rotini noodles. They had a decent barbecue flavor with no aftertaste, but overall nothing special. They smelled kind of like barbecue sauce powder, people said. But then we got Doritos Rings Grill flavor, which were tiny ring-shaped snacks that looked like mini Ringolos. They were very crunchy and tasted pretty good, almost more like Fritos than Doritos. They had a nice, sweet, spicy barbecue smell. And of course, you know we have to talk about Japan. Starting with Sweet Bacon, which came in a can instead of a bag. They were square and rippled and kind of seemed more like Fritos than regular Doritos. They were mustard yellow with sharp angled ripples and tasted remotely bacony at first, with a good black pepper kick coming in during the aftertaste. And people actually liked these a lot. They smelled pretty nice because of the pepper. Then we got Gold Peking Duck, which were the first rectangular Doritos anyone had seen. They were fairly flat with a little wiggle and tasted like duck. The seasoning wasn't super strong, but the chips were still very tasty. They did have a strong smell, sort of like miso soup. Moving on, we have Pizza La Curry Monterey, which were shaped like slices of pizza, which is like all Doritos, technically. Despite the pizza theme and co-branding with a Japanese pizza chain, they did not taste anything like pizza, consumers said. The taste was hard to classify, but was mainly just a vague tomato sauce flavor. Then we got the gourmet line in Japan, starting with gourmet sausage. Yeah, I know, dude. They were shaped sort of like pizza slices with the pointy ends rounded off. They had a mild kick of spices that didn't exactly taste like sausage, but felt within the range of a fried breakfast sausage kind of taste. Then we have gourmet fried chicken with green onion sauce, which also had a modified wedge shape with a very rounded corner. They tasted pretty good and really did taste like the seasoning on an Asian chicken dish with that oniony sauce, though the seasoning was on the mild side. And in a total twist, we have Doritos in a cup. I know, frickin' Japan, man, they're crazy. Cup-style nacho cheese had thin, curvy stick shapes instead of triangles. They had a light sort of Fritos-like crunch and delivered a mild cheese taste that was actually quite a bit milder than regular nacho cheese Doritos. Now let's move to Japan's western neighbors, South Korea. Starting with, of course, fried chicken flavored Doritos. These had the usual triangular Dorito shapes with a light orange color and a very noticeable pattern of burn marks. They had a fairly strong crunch and a flavor that was tangy, mildly hot, and slightly sweet all at once. More heat and flavor arrived when you ate several in a row, and the heat lingered in the aftertaste. But then we also have honey chili Doritos, which look pretty ordinary, but when you crunched into them, you'd get hit with a savory mix of spices before a big wave of sweetness from the honey, which was all finished with some chili pepper heat. And lastly, for South Korea, we have late night seasoned galbi chicken. These had the usual triangular shapes and yellow color of Doritos. It tasted slightly spicy with only very minimal heat, and most people said it didn't actually taste like chicken. And of course, it wouldn't be an international Doritos video without talking about Mexico, which is not actually where Doritos are from, by the way. They just have a very strong brand partnership with Sabritas, which is like the biggest chip company in Mexico. Starting with Adobadas inspired chili and lime Doritos, which borrowed the bright red seasoning usually used for Sabritas Adobadas potato chips. The chips had a very intense dark red seasoning powder unevenly applied. They had an intense flavor mixing tomato, chili, and lime that was quite tangy but only minimally hot. It did work really well in Doritos though, fans said. Next up we have Pizzarola Pizza. These tasted fairly mild and a lot like pizza, obviously, though without much tomato. Kinda like the Italiano tomato and cheese from earlier. However, it was closer to a real pizza taste than some other Frito snacks that have come before, people said. Moving on, we have Doritos Inferno, which came in a light red color. It tasted tangy and was not particularly hot at first, but the heat did pick up as you kept eating them. It still fell short of being a true Inferno, with it not really having a specific flavor, kind of just like a blend of hot peppers. And lastly, we have Doritos Mix, which was a thing in the US too, but Mexico got a more unique version of it, so it gets a pass. With theirs, they had combined regular nacho cheese Doritos, nacho cheesier 3Ds, and chili limon Dynamita pieces in one bag. The Dynamita pieces were reddish and brought the most heat by far, while the regular Doritos and 3Ds kept that cheesy and tangy Dorito flavor. It really did deliver an explosion of flavor and texture. Now, if you thought the US and Japan loved Doritos, let me tell you about a little place called Taiwan. Now, before this video, I would have never guessed that the place with the most exclusive Doritos flavors would be Taiwan. Yet, here we are. And honestly, shout out to Taiwan. Starting with roast chicken. These Doritos had a strong spicy chicken smell that was tangy but not hot at first. Then it grew hotter with the heat lingering in the aftertaste, with these being a strong fan favorite over there. Moving on, we have Szechuan peppercorn chicken. Man, they love chicken in Taiwan, dude. These ones had some fine green bits scattered on mostly yellow chips. They had a great crunch and a nice kick of spices that included a distinctive Szechuan numbing pepper. When you ate a bunch in a row, it got pretty strong, people said, with it even becoming a bit of a challenge in Taiwanese tourist culture, where people try to see how fast they can eat a bag. Next up, we have garlic steak, which I'm pretty sure I've ordered before, but I can't remember if I've had them. Regardless, these had some seasoning that was somewhat garlicky but didn't taste a lot like steak. It was just a general mild savory flavor, pretty common for steak flavored chips. But steak wasn't the only meat to get garlicified, as next up we have garlic shrimp Doritos, which had a fairly typical Doritos look with that pale orange color. They had good levels of shrimp and garlic flavor, people said, and were also noted for having an intense shrimp smell when you open the bag. Continuing with the meat theme, we get barbecue ribs Doritos. These ones had a very nice flavor that was slightly sweet to the start, but then mostly tangy and peppery, with a middling burn that lingered in the aftertaste. It was quite different from other Doritos, and a lot of people liked them. It smelled like a very nice tangy and sweet barbecue sauce, and honestly, is probably close to the barbecue Doritos we have now. Next up, we have the Flavor Shots line, which is sort of similar to something we have over here. They came in two flavors, Flavor Shots Grilled Chicken and Flavor Shots Golden Cheese. They were like mini Doritos that were about an inch on each side, and honestly kind of just feel like an early idea for Doritos minis. Grilled chicken was known for having a good seasoning blend, but not enough chicken to merit the name. Meanwhile, Golden Cheese had, well, a cheese flavor, but with a hint of sweetness that eventually transitions into a more moderate heat. And finally for Taiwan, we get the viral Coriander Doritos, aka cilantro. Giving us that classic kick of herby freshness, the mouth-watering cilantro-inspired corn chips deliver a bright flavor sensation while satisfying your savory snack cravings. Coming in a bright green color, obviously, these things went off, with people really enjoying the herb plenty flavors on them. Now, let's make our way to Turkey Yay, because turkeys had some interesting ones. Starting with Doritos Turca, which made a rare deviation from the standard triangular chips. The actual chips were often curled up. They had a salsa-like flavor that was fairly mild, with strong notes of poppy seeds and dried tomato, although there weren't really any special or unique Turkish spices on it. But another Turkish flavor of Doritos is Nacho Peynirli, I don't know if I said that right, which had an unevenly applied orange powder. They had a very nice crisp feel with a good mild cheese taste that wasn't tangy or hot. People say it's kind of just like the Jumpin' Jack Cheddar or Monterey Jack Doritos, but with a very mild cheese flavor. And finally we get Giant Dippas. These were legitimately huge triangular chips measuring about 3 inches on the shortest edge. The chip itself was just plain corn flavored. However, the bag came with a packet of salty spice mix you're supposed to stir into yogurt to make a dip. Yeah, how cool is that? The dip itself was surprisingly mild once mixed, and these went on to become a more niche, yet loved, international Dorito. Boy, now it's time to head to the UK, isn't it, bruv? I don't know, I tried, man. Starting with Chili Heatwave. These have the same shape, texture, and color as a normal nacho cheese Dorito, yet it had a sweet and hot pepper taste. The sweetness came first, followed by a bit of heat that wasn't actually that strong. It was very tasty, but not very hot. Next up, we have Mexican hot flavor, and spoilers, wasn't very hot again. It had a kind of jalapeno type taste at first, and a bit of a hot aftertaste, but it was basically just regular nacho cheese Doritos with a little bit of jalapeno spice added. It smelled like spicy hot cheese sauce with a hint of taco. And lastly, we have Stax Chili Salsa, which combined the Stax brand with Doritos in a can. The chips were uniform triangles with rounded corners. They had a crumblier, less crisp crunch than regular Doritos, but a nice taste with some typical Dorito cheese and corn, plus a spicy, tomatoey kick from the chili salsa. And last but not least on this list, we have China. Mi Hambao. No. Now, going into this, I kind of assumed China would have like a lot of Doritos, but it appears that most of the China exclusives are just the Taiwan exclusives, which is like, you know. However, I did find China had one unique flavor that they got, which was smoking barbecue Doritos. The chips had a light orange color with a varying levels of seasoning powder. They had a flavor that mixed some sweetness with tangy pepper that had a subtle burn. It wasn't a standard barbecue flavor, and it was genuinely good. The hot kick in the aftertaste was nice too. They smelled very sweet and tangy, people said. Looking back, Doritos has always been good at one thing: letting different countries do their own thing. Some of these flavors feel like genuine attempts to match local tastes, while others feel like corporate experiments. But what's crazy to me is how many of these never made it to the US, even as like limited editions. We got stuck with the same core flavors for years, while other countries were out there getting gold peaking duck, garlic steak, shrimp, fried chicken. Like, come on man, those are all flavors we like too. If Doritos ever did a proper International Flavors Month in the States, I feel like half of these would sell out instantly, and the other half would probably end up in the clearance aisle in like a few weeks. But which one of these would you actually want to try the most? Or which country of Doritos do you think has the best? If I had to pick one from this video, I think it would probably be the Inferno ones from Mexico. I mean, what can I say, man? I just love a good spice. I think it just works so well on chips. But tell me yours in the comments. I do love interacting and reacting with you guys. Let me know what international Doritos I forgot. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe because it does help the channel and it'll make sure more of them pop up in your homepage.
Do you see what I mean? Hip-hop is fucking dead and I'm not trying to be mean. Everyone went in to hide and they don't wanna be seen. The DEA and FBI done fucked up the scene. And I know that sounds lame. Bro, why you promoting crime? Man, you should feel ashamed. But it ain't even about that, it's just